Parliament resumes sitting on the 9th of June, and people are excited and just wondering the turn that Bill number 10 is going to take. As of course, parliamentarians, Honorable Tutwa, are expected to debate the bill as it comes up for second reading. So now my question still stands for the ruling party. Why is Bill number 10 so important to the ruling PF?
Yes, I think it's important, Gloria, to mention that Bill number 10 has some clauses which we feel will simplify the way government is run. In some clauses, we feel it will solve a lot of these problems that arose from the 2016 elections. You know, there are some clauses which we feel will protect, government institutions. There are some clauses which we feel will make it blatantly clear. When there's a problem, the courts can know how to handle some of those situations, like the 14 days, the 30 days. It's important also to mention that some of these problems, Gloria, are arising from the fact that when we changed the constitution in 2016, we did not amend the Bill of Rights. So the constitution was not complete when we were amending it in 2016 because the Bill of Rights flopped. It failed to reach the 50+1, and as a result, we have a situation where some clauses will have to be synchronized. There was a belief when some of those clauses of 2016 were coming in, there was a belief that the Bill of Rights would also pass. But the failure of the Bill of Rights, put us in a situation where we have to find a way of, harmonizing some of those clauses. So we are saying Bill number 10, of course, not everyone has accepted it the way it is, but we are saying Bill number 10 is very progressive. Bill number 10 is good for Zambia.
Mr. Chipendzi, why not Bill number 10? What makes Bill number 10 so undemocratic, as you have constantly put it?
Well, I mean, Bill 10 doesn't give any power to the ordinary people. Bill 10 is consolidating power to politicians, the elected leaders. And this does not mean that it is the PF now. If Bill 10 passes today, any leader that will come, who will be member of parliament tomorrow, who will be president tomorrow, who will be cabinet tomorrow, who will have a field day because Bill 10 have given all the powers instead of decentralizing power. We are going back to centralized kind of power system where the president, the MP, the councillor are more powerful than the ordinary people. So we find that that is not democratic because democracy is about people. That's why it's defined as the rule of the people, for the people, and by the people. And not the rule of the leaders, by the leaders, and for the leaders. And that is what we are finding in Bill 10. It has not decentralized power. It has not helped the ordinary people. It is all about these politicians to get the power that has been even given to Parliament. They want to get it back to themselves. All right? Even power that has been given to citizens, they want to get it to themselves. So they are what we call in Tonga, Bahaji Hule Mwangu, meaning they just want their berries to be as big as they can afford to put in the power in their berries. That's what we are saying. Bill 10 is not democratic.
Honorable Ngulube, what are some of the clauses in the bill you feel will benefit the Zambian people at large?
When we talk about elections, I'm sure McDonald and myself have been around these elections, by-elections, and so on. One of the issues that Bill number 10 will do is going to stop by-elections. The people of Zambia have been crying that there are too many by-elections. Councillors have become, very indisciplined because now you can resign anytime, you can do anything. For members of parliament, the 2016 constitution put a plug. A member of parliament now, when you resign, because of by-election, you are not eligible to stand. 2016 constitution sorted out that issue. But now we have a complaint regarding our councillors, because our councillors, as you have seen, Gloria, they can resign anytime and they're draining the resources, the precious resources that the country has. So bill number 10 is intended on one end to deal with that problem of councillors. Number 2, Gloria, we also know that in most of these instances, when we talk about retirees, for instance, you know, we came up with a clause that says people must not leave the payroll, right? They must remain on the payroll until they have been paid in full. So what we have literally done is that we have tied the pensions benefit to the payroll, which is a problem, because for as long as someone is still on the payroll, government is not able to recruit new members of staff. And we are seeing it on the ground, Gloria. You find in a school where you had maybe 20 teachers, 10 of them have retired. Government cannot send 10 new teachers to that school. Why? Because those 10 teachers who were retired have not been paid their terminal benefits. And so the payroll cannot be expanded. Because remember, government operates on a structure. The other issue, Gloria, that bill number 10 seeks to address is the issue of the confusion that arises after a presidential election. We know that the constitution is not clear right now as regards election petitions. From the many cases that we saw in 2016, just after the general election, we saw that there were several different interpretations assigned to what Parliament actually wanted to do. So we are hopeful that if bill number 10 successfully goes through, some of those clauses have now been touched and refined, and some of those meanings in the bill have actually been defined. One other issue, Gloria, that comes to mind is the issue of the pensions houses. Let's talk about NAPSA. Let's talk about Public Service Pensions Fund. Let's talk about all these other investments. You see, right now, NAPSA's life, the lifeline of NAPSA is on the chopping board. If we do not amend bill number 10, the Public Service Pensions Fund will collapse. NAPSA will collapse. All these will collapse because why? NAPSA as a revolving fund, depends on members' contributions. When members are working, they are sending money to NAPSA for their social security. Now, when people retire and they remain on the payroll, they stop contributing to NAPSA. So that will be a leakage. Blood will be oozing out of the pensions fund. NAPSA, by law, is supposed to pay your money gradually in installments, because they cannot drain the fund by giving 5 people who have just retired. So these are some of the issues that are practical. Of course, people who have not understood the reasons behind those proposals, they might argue that government is trying to punish retirees and so on and so forth. But we are saying, Gloria, even the civil servants, the teachers, soldiers, police officers who have retired and stopped contributing to the Public Service Pensions Fund, they will remain on government payroll. But government will not be able to remit any money to this pensions fund, meaning it will be drained. It will be drained. So we need to restructure. And that is why we are saying we need to find a way of putting together our laws. We don't just change one law and forget about the repercussions that actually come with the change. So there are quite a lot of these clauses that come with all these reasons behind. And maybe the other issue that we might want to address is now it is legal, right? It is lawful for people to belong to the National Health Insurance Scheme, because government wants to protect the lives of the workers, the health of the worker, the bills that they pay for medical bills. You see, so if we do not synchronize these laws with what is happening in reality and on the ground, we might have a constitution, Gloria, which everyone says it's a bad constitution, but no one wants to change it. I think there's consensus. There is general consensus, Gloria, that the constitution of 2016 has a lot of defects, a lot of deficiencies, and we all agree. But the question is, why don't we change it? So there's a problem now because we are failing to agree on how we should change this constitution. And the reason primarily is because in Zambia, we do not have a law, Gloria, that specifies what steps you should take if you want to change a law. what measures you should put in place. So I am proposing myself that even as we talk about bill number 10, we must begin, Gloria, to look at ways in which we must put up a structure. We're talking about consultation when the Constitution itself in Article 79 does not define a consultation. People are talking about stakeholder, consensus when Article 79 does not say so. So we need to work together as cooperating partners, identify these bad laws, and also synchronize them so that as we govern, as we go to court, as we go everywhere, our law is much clearer for everyone to understand.
Comrade Chipendzi, the CSO has been very, very strong condemning bill number 10. What are the clauses that you feel must not be allowed to be amended into the Constitution?
Thank you so much, Gloria and Honorable Tutwa, for that elaborate explanation. We have a lot of issues with Bill 10. Maybe let me start with the pensions that he has mentioned about. I'm very happy that the Constitutional Court, just a few days ago, the Constitutional Court, are you getting me? Are you able to get me?
Yes.
Okay, the Constitutional Court just recently ruled in favor of those people whose pension or who were removed from the payroll. Yes, so there's that ruling now that is actually anchored on Article 189. Now, what we are saying is that the current Constitution is helping the poor retirees, is helping the pensioners. You and me, Gloria, are aware of how destitute or how destitution had engulfed a number of retirees because immediately they retire, they were removed from the payroll. And government was taking too long to pay these people. And the mischief we're trying to resolve was that we should not allow pensioners to suffer when they retire just because government is no longer paying them. And that is what was happening. The moment you are out of the payroll, you are forgotten. And this is why up to now, we still have UBZ guys still crying for their money. You saw what was happening at the Ministry of Justice just recently, where people who retired in the 90s, maybe before even Honorable Tutwa was a practicing lawyer, he was still in school, demanding for their money, okay? Now, at least, even if they are demanding for their pension, they are paid. And now the Constitutional Court has even said, pay them even their housing allowance, pay them even their utility allowance. So that will prompt the government to pay the pensions, to pay them their pension, their benefits, instead of it delaying, saying, no, because people are on the payroll, we cannot employ. Why don't you pay them? Pay them and you employ. So that is one thing that benefits the Zambian citizen, which this Bill 10 is about to remove. They want to remove it. Secondly, we have said, and several times we have said, politicians are putting laws that protect them. Now, you have a situation where politicians are saying they will want to be there until the day of election. They want to enjoy, like Honorable Tutwa now is chief whip. If you be chief whip to next year up to the election day, you'll be driving a government vehicle up to the election day. Is that fair? It's not fair. And that is what Bill 10 is talking about. The ministers will have to drive and enjoy everything ministerial up to the election day. Yet we know that to have credible, free, fair, and an election that has got a level play field, everyone must put aside their ministerial position, their elective position, and compete favorably with others. Now, if the Honorable here goes to Kabwe Central with a flag as Deputy Chief Whip, GRZ, and there's another person there who is competing with him, who has no GRZ, is that a fair election? The answer would be no, because him is entitled to fuel, and he will be using government fuel to campaign for his own seats. While the other man will have to look for his money, looking for money to campaign. That we are saying is not correct. When he says the issue of by-elections, when you read, I think should be amendment number 9 in the bureau, in Bill 10. Amendment number 9, which is in the Bill 10. It says that elections to the National Assembly shall be conducted under a mixed member electoral system as prescribed. Now, what do we understand by a mixed member system? Basically, what you mean is that there will be the first past the post electoral kind of system, and that post electoral will be voted by the constituents in his constituents as an individual. And there's a component of a PR, the proportional representation, which is based basically on the performance of a political party participating in that election. And it is that component that does not require a by-election. But as long as you have the first past the post, a constituency-based election, you cannot do away with by-election. I think that's a clear electoral principle. So the bill does not remove the by-election. It actually entrenches the by-elections because it retains the first past the post electoral system, which means that we have 156 seats, electoral-based seats, and we may have, I don't know how many numbers, because it's not prescribed, how many will come from the PR system. If there will be 30, there will be 40, if it whatever, those are the ones that you replace without a by-election. So that Bill 10 does not remove that mischief. Then Bill 10, it talks about coming up with a law to recognize the chiefs, right? Right now, the Constitution is very clear that the Parliament shall not put a law on this issue of withdrawal and recognition of the chiefs. This Bill 10 now is saying, no, Parliament should put a law that will recognize chiefs and that will not recognize chiefs. Is it not manipulating the chiefs? Then behind us, the same sponsors of Bill 10 go around, and now they are sponsoring another amendment that will bring about the Council of Paramount Chiefs, okay? The Council of Paramount, a superstructure. You are saying government has no money. You are saying that we are struggling, we don't have money to pay retirees, but you are busy creating structures that will go for more money. You have a House of Chiefs, now you want to bring the Council of Paramount Chiefs. Is that not being unfair to the people of Zambia? What is there for the people of Zambia other than election, going to elect somebody and then that somebody stays on until the election day? So those are some of the issues we are saying. This Bill 10 has never been a good bill. Let me come to the multi-religion. The current constitution does recognize that you, Gloria, and the Honorable Tutwa and Chipendzi, you are actually multi-religious. Maybe the Honorable here is even a Muslim in one way. He is even African traditionalist. He goes to these traditional guys to ask for hebos. Okay? But today you want to be oblivion to that kind of fact, to say that no, Zambia is a Christian nation. There is no other religion. No, Zambia is multi-religion. And this constitution we have today, it clearly states that we recognize and uphold that Zambia is a multi-religious country. What is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong. But you want to change now to bring Christianity and bring extremism. We are saying no to extremism. We want Zambia, if the oldest religion in Africa is African traditional religion, which all of us practice. Even Honorable Tutwa and Chipendzi practices African traditional religion like me.
So now, my question, Honorable, that being said by, of course, Comrade Chipendzi, quickly, Article 52 of the Constitution of Zambia is said, it is said that it will be deleted once Bill 10 is amended into the Constitution. Why is it important for this article to be deleted?
You will recognize, first of all, Gloria, that all these proposals that are in Bill number 10 came through various stakeholders. The House of Chiefs came and said, when government used to recognize the chiefs had a lot of protection. No one can simply, today as we are speaking, Gloria, because the law in 2016 said government will not have a role to play in the recognition of chiefs. The situation we have, Gloria, is that anyone can now walk into a palace, kill the chief, and impose himself. So the protection that the chiefs used to have from government has now, been lost, because the Constitution says Parliament shall not pass any law. And what is wrong with that statement, Gloria? Parliament is the only organ. It is the only organ of government that is empowered to make laws. So you cannot have a constitution that stops Parliament from doing its job. So there's a problem there. And that's why Bill number 10 is saying, can we amend Article 165? Because you cannot create a position and say Parliament will make laws. And then in the other clause, you say Parliament should not make laws. And in the other clause, you say Parliament can never make such a law. So those are restrictions imposed on Parliament. And people are saying you cannot have a Parliament that is tied to a tree. It becomes a rubber stamp. Talking about the number of days that members of Parliament should sit in their positions of ministers, I think when you look at the report, Gloria, the report that was produced by the committee that sat to scrutinize that position, the committee proposed that Parliament will dissolve and members of Parliament and ministers will vacate their positions 60 days before general elections. So the issue of saying we will go into elections with our GRZ vehicles, it does not stand. It's neither here nor there. Because if I am seen campaigning with a GRZ vehicle, that is a ground upon which my election can be petitioned and it can be nullified, Gloria. So who wants to risk an election because you were using government resources? And also maybe to correct the impression, my brother, Mr. McDonald, these GRZ vehicles you see us driving, we do not get government fuel. The situation under the PF is that we have austerity measures. I drive my own GRZ vehicle. I service my own vehicle. I buy my own fuel. So we don't have any of those luxuries, because when government was changing the structure and actually, synchronizing some of these conditions of service, that position should no longer be a threat. Talking about some of those clauses that will be deleted,
Article 52.
Clauses that don't speak to each other. We have clauses that don't speak to each other. The same constitution, in articles, this will say that in the other article, it subtracts what it has already said in this article. For example, when we talk about the elections, the people of Zambia have been crying for a very long time now that they want a parliament that is representative of all the people that are in society, be it the physically challenged, those who are disadvantaged, the minority groups, and so on and so forth. How do those people come to parliament? Let's give an example of the albinos, people living with albinism. Their population could be well below 500,000 people in Zambia. If they have to elect their own president or elect their own member of parliament, they are scattered across all the constituencies. They cannot even elect their own council. But if we amend the constitution under Bill number 10, we can create a position, for them through the mixed member system. At least they will be guaranteed. people who have been crying about being discriminated against, the physically challenged, the people with physical challenges and disabilities, and so on and so forth, they will have a position in parliament guaranteed. You don't have to negotiate your way through an election. People are being discriminated in society by virtue of their well-being, of their being, will be guaranteed a seat in parliament. So at least one of them is able to speak from the parliament seat, because he will be sitting in parliament to represent their views. So we will have directly members of parliament elected directly, and we also have members of parliament that will qualify. The youths, for example, the women. Look at the number of female members of parliament we have now, Gloria. We have less than 20 members of parliament, which is less than 30%. We have been saying all along that we want at least 50% representation of females at councillor level and everything. Me, I've got a constituency with 12 councillors. Only one councillor is a woman. So how do we, involve several stakeholders in the governance of this country? Bill number 10 is saying we can actually create a mixed member system. Gloria coming to talk about some of those clauses about elections. For example, Article 47 to 52. We have proposed several times that, look, it is pointless to have a law that it becomes impossible to enforce. For instance, if we say we are going now to have a mixed member system, it means we have to amend Article 47, because Article 47 says elections in Zambia shall be first past the post. So if we are going to introduce mixed member system, it means we must delete those clauses and introduce new ones. The issue of council chairpersons and mayors being elected directly by the people, we are saying these council chairpersons initially were believed to be coming with executive functions and executive power. They would be in charge of all these districts. There will be some of the powers were not passed on to them, and so they did not come with executive powers. Now we have a mayor who is a ceremonial mayor, just like we used to have the other time. So people are saying, why should we maintain these mayors who will be elected at a great cost, when in actual fact the only job they do is to do the same things that the other mayors used to do? And secondly, look at the number of by-elections they've created, and look at how much money government is losing. Government has several needy areas where monies can be channeled. We don't need to invest all the money in by-elections. And right now, as we are speaking, Gloria, we need to employ more teachers. We need to employ more doctors. We need to employ more staff. We can only do that if government saves money and creates portfolios that can be funded. So wherever you see a proposal to delete some of those clauses, the corresponding proposal comes either with an amendment or a proposal to simply do away with some of those clauses. Because right now what we are saying is we cannot have a constitution, Gloria, that you must change every time you have elections. And so to avoid changing the constitution every time you have elections, there's a proposal that some of those clauses relating to issues that change every now and then must be dropped from the constitution and put in subsidiary legislation. For example, in 2016, we enacted the Electoral Process Act. The Electoral Process Act is the one that now deals with matters to do with all the election petitions, starting from councillor up to president. So why should we have some clauses relating to elections in the Electoral Process Act, some clauses in the Constitution? And now, as it is, Gloria, speaking as a practicing lawyer, I'll tell you that even when you are faced with a petition, a councillor's petition, you have to carry on one hand the Electoral Process Act, on the other hand you have to carry the Constitution of Zambia, and on the other hand you have to start looking at the local government regulations. So why don't we put all this in one law, so that it is very easy for us to manage and govern elections?
All right, now, Honorable, my question really was on Article 52 of the Constitution that will be deleted once Bill number 10 is amended. Why is this important?
Yes, so I've mentioned to you in general, right? Of course, there are proposals to delete quite a number of these clauses in the Constitution. And the various reasons that have been advanced relate to the same fact that I've given you, that some of these clauses are conflicting with other clauses in the Constitution. And I believe Article 52 is one such clause that was targeted, because people were saying we cannot have a constitution that will actually keep contradicting itself. So in some clauses where there is a proposal to delete, there is a corresponding proposal somewhere in Bill number 10 to either relegate it to subsidiary legislation or merge it with other clauses. For example, you don't need to talk about the election of a president. You start from Article 47, then you jump, you go back to Article 101, you jump, you go to 105, 107, and then you go up to 108, and then you go 110. So the question is, why don't we create a frame? The Constitution is like a window. It's a frame, and then the other laws are like glasses. You just come and put them there so that they are part of the law. But what Bill number 10, what the Constitution is right now, it's got gaps. In one point, there's a glass. On another window, there's no glass. So we are saying, why don't we clean them up and make these things very clear so that we don't have a situation where you always have to go to court for interpretation. Remember, Gloria, the Constitution must be very clear for everyone to understand whether you're a lawyer or not a lawyer.
Mhm.
But this 2016 Constitution came with contradictory clauses, meanings that if you are not careful, you might have to be rushing to court every time to go and ask them what they meant. What did you mean on this? What did you mean? And you cannot run a government or a country where every time you want to read the Constitution, you have to run to court for interpretation. We must make it very clear that some of those clauses that have been proposed to be deleted are not being deleted permanently, but they are being moved to subsidiary legislation, because a lot of other laws will have to change. Once Bill number 10 goes through, a lot of other laws will have to be adjusted so that the picture does not become distorted.
Before Comrade Chipendzi comes in, the introduction or reintroduction of deputy ministers, Honorable.
Yes, the proposal was rejected by introduced deputy ministers. It was rejected by the committee that scrutinized the bill. Although it's still appearing in the bill, the Minister of Justice has presented a list of clauses that he is proposing to amend. Even Cabinet itself, when they sat down to look at the proposals to Bill number 10, they actually rejected it. So I can assure you right now, no single member of parliament is supporting the reintroduction of deputy ministers, and no one should be scared that government might, through either parliament or cabinet, reintroduce the deputy ministers. Government has clearly stated its position, NDF stated its position, the committee stated its position. And if you look at the committee report, Gloria, you discover that we listened to all the stakeholders when we were listening to these proposals at Parliament. And we had an opportunity to hear the various reasons, those who are for and those who are against. And at the end of the day, what comes out is that there is now, from 72 clauses, there is consensus on about 51 clauses. Only a few clauses have been, queried. So as we speak right now, Gloria, 99% of the people are saying we don't want deputy ministers. And parliamentarians also agree. Government also agrees.
As we wrap up this discussion, Comrade Chipendzi, this is out of your hands. How will you influence parliamentarians as CSOs that are against the bill to really move in the way you want them to move?
Thank you. Maybe first, before I get to your point of how we want to influence, is Honorable Tutwa here is saying there are no allowances. I believe that the money that ministers and MPs are given is appropriated, and is some kind of gazette where we can read for ourselves. It is a known fact that MPs nominated and elected are entitled to fuel allowance. I think that is a known fact. I've covered Parliament before, and I remember and I've seen where, actually even last year, I wrote an article on my Facebook where nominated members of Parliament are given fuel or allocated fuel according to that write-up I saw. And I asked myself, what constituents do they represent? How do I understand for Honorable Tutwa because he had to travel to Kabwe Central and move around. That fuel is understood. Now, what we are saying is that if Parliament is to approve the staying of ministers up to election date, it means that these ministers, these chief whips, who are also parliamentarians, well, you know, they will still get the money, the fuel allowance, to go around their constituency saying we are inspecting CDF. Meanwhile, they are campaigning. They are campaigning. They also have a Monteo there, where they are entitled to a room. All right, and it will be turned into a campaign center because Okadas and everybody will be going there. So we don't want that unfair play field ahead of the elections. Now, coming to the issue of the constitution, Honorable Tutwa is a legal mind. He must understand that in constitutional making, there is a phase. There are phases. Right now, we are debating the bill, the proposals. If the proposals have gone through, it is the issue of now, implementing, the implementation phase. This constitution we are talking about has only been tested once, and that was in 2016. We have not tested many of those articles in the current constitution. There are about 300 plus articles in the current constitution. How many of those have been tested? Some of them have not even been operationalized, and we are already changing the constitution. The issue is that any constitution must be tested. When people go to court, they are basically testing the constitution. And it's out of those tests, that's when you can put together and say, I think our constitution has many challenges, and let's go to amendment. Now, you have 14 days. The same 14 days, can it trigger for the amendment of the constitution? And yet we know what caused all those shenanigans of failing to interpret the 14 days. Then it comes to, so after you have tested the constitution, that's when you go to amendments. Because now, all the articles, for example, maybe 90% of the articles have been tested, and they have been found to be wanting. But in this case, only 3 or 4 have been tested and have been found wanting, and say, no, let's go and change the constitution. That is not the way you make the constitution. I think in that way, you are actually abusing the constitution itself. Now, coming to the issue of how do we want to influence, maybe let's move to 52, Article 52, that you have asked. Article 52 is about nominations. And sub-article 52, sub-article 4 talks about the issue of challenging the nomination. This article, according to Bill 10, they want to relegate it to, of course, it's not written anywhere, but according to the argument that I'm getting from Honorable Tutwa and the others that are pro-bill, they are saying they want to relegate it to a subsidiary legislation. Now, here is an issue. When you relegate most of these things to subsidiary legislation, what happens is that changing a subsidiary legislation is about simple majority. In the current parliament, PF has got about 90 MPs. It's a simple majority. For them to change any article in any section of any subsidiary legislation is as easy as drinking water. Very easy. Is as easy as Honorable Tutwa getting into his vehicle. Because you don't need to buy any, to canvass support from any other. But when you leave, for example, the electoral system, the number of constituencies in the constitution, if you want to change, you have to lobby because it will require 2/3 majority. This is why you have seen drama around Bill 10. Because if Bill 10 was like a subsidiary law, PF would have already changed it. They have the numbers in terms of simple majority. But because they don't have 2/3 majority, you have seen now even allegation of people running with sacks of money at the parliament to try and get this one, to try and support the bill. This is what we want, because democracy must be anchored on majority.
There is agreement. McDonald does agree with me that this constitution is not, it's not perfect. The UPND agree it's not perfect. The church agrees it's not perfect. But the question is, why are we not moving together? So the question that still lingers in the people's mind is, can you tell us what is good and what is bad for us to decide? So that when the members of parliament are going back to parliament on the 9th of June, people must know exactly what the people have agreed.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable. And of course, good luck as you debate in parliament next month.